Hello, everyone, and welcome to another podcast from Pro Wrestling Ponderings. Do not adjust your headsets. Jerome Cuson has decided to relinquish hosting duties for one night only. But who will replace PWP's MVP? Well, that would be me, Matt Waters. I knew I'd be running this joint within a year. On this edition of the podcast, we'll be discussing the last 12 months in Ring of Honor. But I can't do this alone, so I'm legitimately very pleased to introduce my guest for this podcast, a man I look up to professionally. He's the writer of the Column of Honor over at 411mania.com, which is, in my opinion, the finest piece of ROH journalism out there. His name is Ari Berenstein. How are you doing, sir?
Yeah, doing well, Matt. Wow, that's some very kind words. I definitely appreciate it. So, yeah, doing good. Ready for the end of the year and the beginning of the next year. And
Awesome. So there's a lot to go over for Ring of Honor in the year of 2010, but I thought we'd just start out by, I don't think there's been any discussion of Final Battle in a Pro Wrestling Ponderings podcast as of yet, so I figured we'd just very quickly get into that, as it was sort of, I figured we'd start at the end, just to do things quite strangely. So just a very brief initial impressions from ROH's final event of 2010.
Final Battle 2010 was really great. It's obviously, I think a lot of discussion on the internet's already been around and about the two main events, Steen and Generico and Richards and Strong. I thought the under it was solid. It really wasn't as spectacular as let's say a Death Before Dishonor 8, even the last show, New York Glory of Honor 9. But I think it held up on its own, and the opener really was probably the best out of all the other matches, save the two main events. But I think people really went to the show to see the three major storylines sort of wrap up. The Briscoes and the Kings of Wrestling, with Papa Briscoe and Shane Hagedorn added to either side, and Strong and Richards for the title, and then Steen and Generico finish up their feud. And I think if people went for those, for those three things, then they would get their money's worth for sure. The Richards versus Strong match I thought was just an incredible, sort of title match style that Ring of Honor usually brings, with a lot of great technical wrestling in the beginning, and then sort of leaping into this going overboard with finisher sequence that sometimes happens on these matches. And I thought they did a great job with it. The concussion storyline, or if it's not a storyline, they did a great job of really incorporating it into the end of the match. But most people seem to think that the Richards concussion thing is an angle. I can't really be sure either way, but I thought it was very well done as far as a way to get the champion Strong into 2011 as a champion, and the challenger still remains very strong, no pun intended. And I think Richards doesn't lose anything by losing this way, by putting up such a great fight. And then, of course, Steen and Generico was sort of this last stand, epic hero versus hated villain finale that, just threw everything out there. They didn't hold anything back. And, I've read some complaints that people have said, that they went too far. Dave Meltzer says, from the Wrestling Observer, says that they give away too much. But honestly, I can't agree with that. I think that for this one match, this is the match that Steen and Generico really ought to have just thrown everything out there and given that finale that feud deserved, and they did. They blasted each other through and on top of ladders, through tables. There was this incredible ladder bridge plus a table construct that was on the outside. There was a huge spot towards the end. And then, of course, you had Generico with the turnbuckle brainbuster and hitting Steen with the chair, which it seemed to clip him more on the shoulder than the head. But, I think it was a great reaction nonetheless from the crowd. And I think, for the feud. which is the good guy going out in the end after, a year of being bullied around and trying to fight back and mostly being overpowered. That he finally gets the last laugh and the big win and the big celebration. It's just a shame that because of Kevin Steen throughout the entire year has been such an amazing wrestler, amazing personality, an amazing heel for the promotion, that it's a shame that there's a number of different reasons apparently going around that Steen has said in an interview as to why he might have been forced out or whatever. But the storyline sort of called for him to be leaving anyway. So it's a shame that he's leaving because of what he can contribute, but I think it was the right way to end the show and the right way to end the feud. So as a whole, again, and then in the Briscoes and Kings of Wrestling, the Briscoes just laid big Kings of Wrestling, and Papa got to do his thing against Shane. So, if you're looking for what was advertised, you got your money's worth. And Kyle O'Reilly, Adam Cole, they stole the show with the All Night Express in the first half, and Daniels and Homicide. But everything else was solid. So, thumbs up pay-per-view all the way. You gotta give it to them because Go Fight Live has set some record numbers for it. Ring of Honor is exceptionally happy with the results, and I think it's a great capper to what was essentially a huge comeback story for Ring of Honor in 2010 after what many thought was a very shaky 2009.
Yeah, there's a lot. You said a lot there when I would expect you to. You are an expert on Ring of Honor, but I agree with everything you said. I think, first of all, I was just really proud of them that this, because it was a year since the first pay-per-view, and that was a bit shaky. Not everything went as tremendously as it could have done, and there was the controversial ending to the whole thing. And this kind of, a lot of people had difficulty connecting at the beginning, but that was just because of high demand. But the show ran smoothly. I think they demonstrated they've got the timings down really well now. The pay-per-views, each one, it's sort of, they've become really snappy and they flow from one match to the next, and it's all done really well. And there wasn't any controversy or anything like that. So I think they really needed that. In terms of the main events, I think at the time I thought Davey and Roddy was a little bit overkill, but on reflection, I think that was a really good match, and I think it was the best way to handle it, because if Strong had dropped that belt immediately, he would have looked terrible. But at the same time, Davey was... Yeah, because Jerome and I had this argument for a long time, that if Strong, after 15 failed attempts, finally wins the world title, defends it once, and then loses to Davey, that's a huge slap to the face to his loyalty to the company and everything that his title chase has meant. But at the same time, Davey was the most popular thing in Ring of Honor, so this, I think, was the best way to deal with it, because Davey loses nothing by being knocked out, but Roddy looks strong for knocking him out. So I think that was a good way to sidestep what was a very difficult situation.
Right. And, I'd agree. I think, it's sort of, Ring of Honor sort of has been sort of paying for the sins of 2009, because, they've been trying to catch up on the world title situation for who their champion is to meet the fan demand. Excuse me. And I think, you're exactly right. They were in a very big predicament. If you change the title from Strong to Richards, it really does a huge disservice to Strong's future in Ring of Honor. And unfortunately, Richards right now is the hot hand in the promotion. But this is the way they did the finish was probably the best way to go forward with Strong as champion while still keeping Richards hot. And that's the thing with Richards, is that he's so self-confident in that ring, and he's got this sort of huge aura of him as a fighter, and someone who doesn't go down without a fight, that they had to hit those extremes in that title match of Final Battle 2010 for it to seem like Richards could possibly lose the match. And it was a good storyline, because Richards had had the win, but it slipped away from him, and Strong overpowered him with his offense, and that's something they can follow up on a future rematch.
Yeah, exactly. Strong, he is the heel champion and he's got the cowardly manager and the mouthpiece and everything, but he has been booked consistently to look like he will kill you in that ring, and Davey refused to back down, so Roddy was like, okay, if you're not going to back down, I'm just going to annihilate you. And he just unleashed
Right.
this hellish onslaught, and the story was that Davey took it all and was, knocked for six, but he will keep coming. And I like they've got this little storyline in place with Truth and Roddy having some tension, and you've got to think eventually it's going to lead to either Strong becoming an ultimate heel and saying, I knew all along, ha 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 ha, or it's going to cause a rift between them. So I like that is in place, and I think that's another reason why Roddy needed to keep the belt, because they were working on that on HDNet, and I'm interested to see how they go forward with Truth Martini and Roderick Strong. And then with Kevin Steen and El Generico, on paper, that should have been a garbage spot fest, with just way too many unnecessary spots and everything. But it worked, and I loved it, and I thought it was the absolute perfect way to win that feud, with Steen absolutely dominating, and then El Generico just firing back and giving him 12 months of frustration and ending it the way it started with a huge chair shot, and then celebrating with the original El Generico mask. And Jerome Cuson was saying how if Davey doesn't win in the main event, then the fans would riot. But they got a hell of a match, and then they got the ultimate catharsis from El Generico defeating Kevin Steen, and they all went home happy. So I think everything was done just the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. Reaction to the main event, being there live, it was a lot of shock and awe as to just the extremes these two were going to and beating each other. But there were definitely so many times during that match where the crowd got completely behind Generico and cheered him on to victory. And it is something you were indicating earlier, 2009, the final battle of the first Go Fight Live pay-per-view, it ended kind of shaky because for the live crowd at the time, the 1 hour draw between Aries and Black was not what they wanted to see, and they did not treat it well. And there are, as I've said many times before, there are those who watched through the internet pay-per-view who actually did like that match, but live it was not very well received. I personally didn't like the 1 hour draw, and so the action that was going there. And what happened for Final Battle 2009 was that doing that sort of it upset the apple cart. All the great action and all the awesome events like the Steen heel turn and the Kings of Wrestling reforming and the title change from the American Wolves to the Briscoes. All that stuff was undone by that last hour. Whereas Final Battle 2010, the undercard was solid, but there wasn't anything as great as Steen and Generico against the Young Bucks, and there wasn't anything as sort of crazy exciting as the Kings of Wrestling reuniting and attacking and laying out the Briscoes. But what Final Battle 2010 did have was two very compelling main events, and the last match that sent the crowd home happy and exiting the building. One of the rare times that almost the entire exiting crowd was chanting in unison. They were chanting the Olay chant, and it's been a long time since I've left the Ring of Honor show where people are chanting. They've chanted before stuff like "Man Up" or whatever, but this is something that that sent out the crowd on a happy note, and everyone was sort of riding on the buzz of that moment. And so they ended the show on a high note that they should have probably done on last year. But again, it sort of exemplifies that big difference from the beginning of this year to the end of this year is that Ring of Honor has come to improve itself in a lot of different ways. A lot of positives that happened this year. There are still some negatives that need to be worked on, but in many ways, the ending of Final Battle 2010 indicates just how far they've come.
Yeah. Okay, now what we're going to do from this point is I'm essentially going to run us through the year from a number of different perspectives, and every now and then I will stop ranting and monologuing and allow you to share some opinion, some critique of the particular section I've just gone over. So the year began with Austin Aries still as the world champion after beating Tyler in that very controversial match to close out 2009, but Ring of Honor quickly opted to switch the title to Tyler at the 8th anniversary show. And the focal point of this match was the 3 ringside judges that were there to make sure there were no shenanigans this time. It would be Roderick Strong's involvement that would prove crucial to the world title picture in the coming months, as he prevented Kenny King from interfering in the match, only to be hit with a super kick from Tyler, who thought he was in some way acting in an aggressive fashion towards him. And this, coupled with the fact that Tyler had promised Roddy the first shot at the title if he won, led to Strong campaigning hard for a title shot for the first pay-per-view of 2010, The Big Bang. And this was the big focus for the weeks and months leading to this pay-per-view. And but that wouldn't be the case, because we would have Austin Aries remaining very much in the title hunt, and Jim Cornette elected to make Tyler's first defense an elimination triple threat match. And during the build-up for this feud, Strong became more and more paranoid about everybody lying to him, and this was something that proved crucial to his change in character over the course of the year. Tyler ultimately retained the title after he and Aries combined forces to eliminate Strong, which further made him believe everyone was against him. And then Tyler defeated Aries again, because that was the story in the early part of the year, that Tyler finally had Aries' number and Aries could not defeat Tyler. But there would also be a new challenger emerging in the same night, as the wrestling world was shocked by the return of Christopher Daniels to Ring of Honor competition. So I'm going to call that the first sort of quarter of the year for the world title, the main event scene in Ring of Honor. So what were your thoughts on this first part of the year for Ring of Honor?
Well, that's a lot of action and activity. Ooh.
Here's the challenge.
Well, yeah, it is. Well, first of all, I think the Black title run was long overdue. And I look at the beginning of 2010 sort of as a mea culpa from Ring of Honor. SoCal Showdown was actually a tremendous show from top to bottom, with the exception of the Larry Zbyszko Scotty 2 Hottie match, which I don't even want to get into detail to, because that's just too traumatic.
It never happened.
It never happened. But the rest of that card was really good. The Aries Jushin Liger match was a non-title match, but it was a really good feather in the cap for Aries to go up against Liger, and they put on a hell of a show. And then the 8-man tag match main event with the Bucks and Briscoes against the Wolves and the Kings of Wrestling, and it was the first tag match back for the Kings of Wrestling. That was a phenomenal tag team action, total nonstop action, if you will. And so that was the only show in January, leading into the only show in February, or the house show, not so much the HD Net tapings, but the only house show was the 8th anniversary show in New York, and that was the first major show back since Final Battle 2009, and it was a smaller crowd in attendance. Perhaps owing to the finish of Final Battle, but it was a home run of a show. It was a very solid undercard. Richards and Generico put on a tremendous match to end the first half, and then Black and Aries fought for the title, and it was one of those epic title match feel atmosphere that Ring of Honor shows have provided over the years. I mean, it maybe wasn't as loud as Aries versus Samoa Joe, but it certainly had that sort of buzz going on, especially in the last 5 minutes, where this was a crowd that was sort of 50-50 in the beginning of the match, favoring one or the other, or split. When Black was on a roll, it seemed that at one point the entire crowd went to his side, and they really wanted to see him win. And when he did, it was electric. It was a great moment. But unfortunately, I think that was sort of, the peak before, it really didn't come back until Death Before Dishonor 8 for his title run as far as fan acceptance. I mean, he definitely still had some terrific title matches. The Big Bang main event was an incredible effort on all three men, Black, Strong, and Aries. And Black also had a good title defense against Kenny King and a really good one against Chris Hero that got the Chicago fans really buzzing for a bitter friend, stiff enemies too. And it was, unfortunately, Black is suffered for the booking mistakes of the previous year, and it was his cross to bear, even though he's the wrestler, not a booker, not the one in charge of what happens. But the fans, instead of, they blamed the booking, but they also, I think, resented Tyler Black for the 2-year push that really should have ended sooner. So Black as a champion was, I was always a fan of Black winning the title. I wasn't actually a fan of Black when he first started on Ring of Honor, but I turned around very quickly on him and, should have thought he should have gotten the title sooner. But when he did, I thought he did a very amicable job as champion, even though there was still plenty of controversy around him. And as for Roderick Strong, obviously the story of 2010 also runs through him and sort of his character change. I thought that he gets criticized a lot for not having a personality, but I think people have really, I think his critics have become too hung up on maybe the way he was 4 or 5 years ago, and they've sort of not really given him full credit for this paranoid personality and sort of his transformation into sort of the Lion King, so to speak. The guy at the top who is maybe he's not deserving, even though. Well, how can I put it this way? He comes across as a bit of a twat, so to speak, to use some English parlance. And it's because he turned heel and because he was paranoid that going into the new year he was a very big fan favorite and everybody loved him and thought he should be champion and sort of. His personality didn't matter, but the minute he got a personality, it's like everybody's saying, "Oh, he doesn't have a personality; he's bland, and he shouldn't have Chief Martini as a manager." But people who've been paying attention, you should have seen this sort of storyline track progression from the beginning of the year. I mean, it was very clear what was happening to him and his character, and where he was going, and then where that would take him, which would be probably to the title, and it did.
Yeah, absolutely.
So. There you go.
I had a friend who he's a big Ring of Honor fan, but he hadn't been following it as much lately. And I was telling him about how Roderick Strong was like really on top of his game this year, and he just had it stuck in his head, the image of Roddy when he was the FIP World Champion, and the fans were chanting Roderick, and he just had this stigma in his head about boring Roderick Strong. And I was like, just sit and just watch him, and he is really good now. And I thought they told a really good story with Roddy becoming paranoid. When I first saw the Big Bang with him getting eliminated first, I was like, oh, well, he's meant to be the new challenger, so why is Aries getting to be the last man out? But then,
right,
when you look at that in the long term, it contributed even further to the story because he was like, well, I was meant to get a one-on-one shot, I had to be in a triple threat, fine. And then they had to gang up on me to beat me, so why am I not getting my one-on-one title shot? And I thought this, as you said, he didn't really have a personality, and they kind of put one on him, and I think it was a good one in that he was, because he had a point. That's the most crucial part when you're doing a storyline in wrestling. That's CM Punk's greatest strength. He speaks the truth, and pun not intended here, but Roddy had a point. It did seem that the deck was kind of stacked against him.
And Black, Yeah, Strong and Black have been sort of connected at the hip for much of this year, and towards the end of 2009 as well. And they had been portrayed as not best friends but friends, and Black had brought him in to be the special guest referee at the eighth, not referee, special guest judge at the 8th anniversary show. And in return, Black had promised the first title shot, and Cornette said, no, wait a minute, we're going to give it to both Strong and Aries, and Strong took that as sort of a slight. I liked that. I thought that was a good storyline twist. I think it made sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
As far as Aries and Black, there is that. I mean, even Aries has made the joke during the year on different shows. That this is Aries versus Black. Take 3,570. They did do a lot of one-on-ones and different matches against each other, such that it sort of became redundant by the end. But for the most part, those matches were good to really good to great. So it's hard to slight Ring of Honor for booking them so much against each other since they had good chemistry. But I see the point taken. And the Big Bang finish, or at least for the first fall, was Strong just taking an onslaught of different offense. I think he took like 2 super kicks and 2 brain busters, and they just took like a nuclear bomb arsenal to get rid of him. And then Black also had to unload a lot to get rid of Aries. And I just thought that whole thing was very well done. And it sort of signaled, a lot of people said by Death Before Dishonor 8 that Ring of Honor had come back. But I think if you look at the first quarter of the year, they were making significant strides, especially in the mid-card and the top of the card. Not necessarily the undercard. The undercard, depending on the show, and especially the TV tapings, it was somewhat weak and lacking. But the upper card especially was some of the strongest, and you could see building from the first quarter of the year that sort of developing and carrying through.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on to the second quarter, we kind of covered this a little bit during our discussion, but this second quarter of the year for me was about Tyler kind of adding some notches to his belt for his title run. Right, he just knocked off a series of opponents. He had the 2 great matches that you mentioned against Kenny King and Chris Hero. That match against Chris Hero is, in fact, possibly one of my favorite matches of the year in any company. So I really love that match. And he was also beating guys in non-title matches on HDNet at live event. And the theme there was he would often start the match, the crowd would be booing him, and by the end they would cheer him because he would prove himself to them. Because you can say what you want about Tyler Black. Tyler Black is a really good wrestler, and he can do some amazing things. And that was the thing. He would begrudgingly earn the fans' respect, and that's what this second quarter was about for me. And of course, he had his he would get his big challenge from Davey Richards, and he actually he defeated Roderick Strong as well in this second quarter in the match that had all the referee bumps. And that would lead to Roddy finally joining forces with Truth Martini and the House of Truth. And he would earn number 1 contendership in the Toronto Gauntlet at Death Before Dishonor. Christopher Daniels had been on a big undefeated streak. He beat Kenny Omega at the pay-per-view, and Tyler, of course, defeated Davey in what many consider the match of the year. So it wasn't as eventful of a second quarter in terms of storylines for the main event, but there was a lot of really good matches, and I think Roddy's story continued to be strong, but Tyler, it was just mostly about getting some defenses under him and proving he was a worthy champion.
Yeah, very much so, and I think the second quarter of the year, capped off by Black versus Richards and Death Before Dishonor 8. I mean, this was Ring of Honor at its strongest, focusing on the wrestling, the in-ring action, and really going a long way towards just delivering on that for the title stuff, for the Generico and Steen feud with their Come As You Are street fight at Better Friends Stiffer Enemies 2, with Supercard of Honor 5 with the Big Strong versus Black match, and then obviously Black versus Richards. And the thing about I agree with you what you said about the fan reaction to Tyler Black is again I termed it as controversial, and the thing is that I've come to realize about Ring of Honor fans is that, Ring of Honor fans, as far as a babyface go, they're really looking for a badass to be the number one guy, to be the top babyface.
Right.
I think low-key sort of set the stage way back in 2002, and Samoa Joe sort of added to that paradigm, and even Bryan Danielson with his sort of endurance and his toughness and his 15-month run. The fans really want to back somebody who can sort of embody that whole fighting spirit, take no shit,
I'm gonna kick your head in, that kind of thing.
Yes, exactly, right on. And I think for them, I think Baby Richards was sort of the personification of those characteristics. So you look at the way they treated Tyler Black, and I think part of that was because they resented his booking, and part of it was because he was a guy who was a pretty boy baby face to some extent. I mean, he did have the beard and stuff, but he was rather good looking, and the girls liked him. I don't want to call him like a John Cena type wrestler, but not necessarily. He was more like an AJ Styles. He was more finesse than Davey Richards, hard kicking and take no shit attitude, and I think that was the difference, and it sort of all came to a head at Death Before Dishonor 8. But I think both really sort of made the case for why they're such great wrestlers in that main event. When they went at it for 35 minutes, they told a great story. They had the fans believing that Tyler Black couldn't beat him, and when they started chanting, "You can't beat him," 30 seconds later, Tyler Black gets that wrist clutch, God's last gift, and the match. And I thought it was you called it the match of the year. It is my match of the year as well, and my show of the year as well, Death Before Dishonor 8. It's just, that was a top to bottom card. The four matches, the marquee matches, Generico and Steen in the first one-on-one. Daniels and Omega had a fantastic athletic bout, and the Briscoes and the Kings of Wrestling had a very bloody, great brawl for the tag team titles, no disqualification match. And then the undercard was very solid as well. The shit on the DQ for the Aries Delirious feud, and I think that was sort of a necessary evil because that was still going to happen, that was going to continue. But from top to bottom, that was a hell of a show. So, the second quarter was filled with very strong matches, strong shows, except for Civil Warfare. But we don't have to talk about Civil Warfare. Actually, we should. I mean, it was the weakest show of the year. So, and it's sort of something that we need to remind ourselves that even though Ring of Honor has provided such a great, wrestling and many great shows compared to 2009, there's still one or two times throughout the year where they'll lay an egg. They're capable of having these weaker shows as well. But then again, you contrast that with Death Before Dishonor 8, and that's sort of the heights of what Ring of Honor can provide. So you sort of have that. Both of those within like a 2-month frame. You had Civil Warfare, Supercard of Honor 5 was the sort of non-finish of it was a finish. It was a bullshit DQ finish. The Motor City Machine Guns and Kings of Wrestling match with the Briscoes interfering, which was an incredible disappointment to the crowd because it was such a perfect match, and it had to end that way because of, I guess we learned later that TNA had demanded that the Machine Guns not lose cleanly, and then a couple months later they were the TNA Tag Team Champions. So, and then you go on and you have Buffalo Stampede 2. I'm sorry, no, was that Buffalo Stampede 2 that happened? Yes, it was. Buffalo Stampede 2, which was also kind of a weaker show. And then follow that up with Death Before Dishonor 8. So within that same quarter, you can see that there's, Ring of Honor at its sort of worst and Ring of Honor at its sort of best.
That's a very fitting way to describe that period. So heading towards the end of the summer and stuff like that, the big story in the main event scene was Tyler Black signing with the WWE while he was still champion in a very clear homage to the Summer of Punk, and over time Black You know, he turned from just saying, look, I'm going to the WWE and you kind of have to deal with it, to pretty much getting on the fans for booing him and calling him a sellout. And his turn to the dark side was helped in no small part by the corrupting influence of Kevin Steen, and these two had a hell of a match. Like, kind of, I mean, they had the chemistry from the Age of the Fall, Stenerico feud from back in the day, but I don't know why I was so surprised, but they had a really good match. And the way that, like, to beat Steen, Tyler had to kind of, like, a part of him was changed by it, and Steen sort of ranting to Tyler, and then afterwards Tyler came out of it.
Yeah, and that was never overtly said, but I think it was a great sort of subtle touch, and obviously necessitated by the fact that Black was leaving for the WWE. But you can definitely look at that and see the turning point is the match with Steen at Salvation, where before he was sort of the shining white knight babyface who was defending the title, and then someone who was woken up by Kevin Steen by the bloodletting in that match, and whatever Kevin Steen said to him after the match, that nobody's ever really been able to, I guess, read his lips and figure it out. But he said words to Tyler Black that changed Tyler Black's perception of the world. In the storyline, anyway, he signs with WWE in real life and in storyline, and that sort of changes him towards being a selfish, self-centered guy who's going to stuff it back in everybody's face and prove himself that he's going to leave Ring of Honor while still the champion as well, and no one can stop him.
Yeah. And Steen ahead of time was saying how he was going to save Tyler, and I just thought it was a really well done thing with the open letters and everything, and how he changed Tyler. And Steen was making comments about how Tyler was his friend afterwards and applauding everything he said. And it was in the grand scheme of things, it probably didn't mean a lot, but I just enjoyed that mini feud that they had. And from there, Tyler he refused to defend the belt. He made his contractual appearances. He wrestled, but he said he wasn't going to defend the belt. He had his match. I think he went to a 30-minute draw with Daniels. He beat Eddie Edwards. He lost twice to Davey in non-title matches. And he just continued, and he was just saying, I'm going to defend the belt the one time I have to, but I'm not going to bust my ass or anything for the fans because they've turned on me. So why should I defend the belt unless I absolutely have to? And he would defend it on his final night with the company against Roderick Strong, who made good on his 16th attempt at the world title, capped off his undefeated streak since joining forces with Truth Martini, won the world title finally. Tyler exits the building by flipping off the fans. But Roddy's moment of glory did not last long, because here comes Homicide to rain on his parade and say, look, I'm back. I want that belt. And of course we had another huge story from Glory by Honor in the main event scene, with Davey Richards announcing that he would be staying in wrestling, despite earlier in the year stating that 2010 would be his final year. So the company lost Tyler in this third quarter of the year, but they kept Davey, and they regained Homicide, so to speak. So what were your thoughts on this sort of, I mean, we've kind of already addressed part of Tyler's change, but this summer of black, I don't know what to call it, and all of that, and Homicide returning and Davey staying.
It's how can I put it this way? This was Black's, I think, renaissance, even more than becoming champion. I think this was sort of when he really found himself. And in 2009, he was criticized by different people for his promos, and the sort of babyface promos weren't necessarily cutting it. And in 2010, he had improved on that. But I think really, going back to the Age of the Fall days, Tyler Black's heel promos are excellent stuff. And when he's giving it to the fans, and it's generating huge heat. That's a strong suit, and in many ways, maybe Black should have been a heel all along. But especially since the stuff with the crowd turning Nigel and they're turning on Lynn, even though Lynn didn't turn heel. I think this was sort of maybe a direction they didn't want to go to just yet. And then when he signed WWE, it's sort of that's going to be met with a lot of negativity by the fans, so you might as well go with it anyway. And I think they did the right call. They made the right call with a lot of things during this time frame. And Black was super hot, generated a lot of heat with the crowd, and it didn't matter who he was facing, whether it was Eddie Edwards or Tyler Black, or Eddie Edwards or Davey Richards or Christopher Daniels. The fans wanted to see Tyler Black just get mangled. The only one who really could get through to him was Davey Richards, and then later on Roderick Strong. And at this time, Roderick Strong, we talked about him being sort of the paranoid heel, and unfortunately, I think this is where Ring of Honor sort of failed him. In a way, they built him up as a heel, but he was going up against the heels at the time, and the fans were cheering him on as a babyface, even though he had taken on Truth Martini and was acting very heelish. And then when he fought against Tyler Black at Glory of Honor 9 for the title, by proxy he was a babyface. So this was perhaps one of the weaker parts of this quarter, was that in prepping Strong to be the champion, they really didn't get him over as a huge heel, and it really wasn't until he came back in Final Battle 2010, where we talked about with the fight against Richards, that you sort of really saw him capable of being that sort of heel role. But until then, it was a little bit on the weak side for that. But Glory of Honor 9, it was a great show. As you said, they lost Black, but they kept Richards, which was a great thing. I think Richards is a huge asset to them this past year, in 2009, 2010, and in the year to come. He really is one of their top shelf guys. And I think adding Homicide, even though results have been mixed, and he's come under fire for perhaps not being, giving 100% effort or, whatever, I think there's a lot of potential in him, and what can be done character-wise. And I think his character is such a strong suit for him, the sort of this unpredictable nature, that he can be either a good guy or a bad guy. He can sort of paint both sides, and there's a lot that can be done with him, I think, if they know what 2011 and sort of set him on a path. It doesn't necessarily matter if he doesn't wrestle the match of the night or the match of the year, as long as he can be sort of this wild card in the works. I think that's where his strong suit lies. He had a great reception.
That's always been Homicide.
I'm sorry.
That's always been Homicide's thing, though, isn't it? Like, he's never tried. I'm sure he tries to have, 5-star matches, but he's more. He draws a reaction no matter what he is doing. The crowd connect with him, and I think we're in a time where there's a lot of familiar faces have left. There's a lot of guys that they're good and the fans cheer them when they do good things, but there's no instant reaction to a lot of the guys on the roster. And I think even if Homicide isn't putting on wrestling clinics, he is someone who is a positive in that way, in that when his music plays, the fans get up and they bang the guardrail. When he enters, they chant his name and they just connect with him. And I think, as I said, even if he's not putting on clinics, that is a very positive thing that they get from Homicide.
Absolutely, and especially in New York. I mean,
yes.
Unfortunately, something I noticed in watching Glory by Honor 9 on DVD is they cut out the ending, a lot of the ending with Homicide coming down. They showed you him coming in, and they showed a little bit of the face-to-face with Roderick Strong, but they really did a disservice by not including all the post-match stuff, his antics. It got hugely over with him calling out Truth Martini and threatening to kill him, that sort of stuff. He didn't. I'm paraphrasing here, but the New York City crowd lit up when he came out for the surprise return, and obviously it's his hometown, so you would expect that kind of reaction. But I think if he can generate that kind of reaction, whether people like him or hate him, again, being that wild card is sort of, I think, his greatest asset. And yeah, he doesn't, if you look at his past in Ring of Honor, he's put on some great technical wrestling matches, but he's more, I think his greatest strengths are the brawling matches, the hardcore matches. And unfortunately, Ring of Honor is getting away from that a little bit, aside from the Sting and Narco stuff from this past year. But I think it's something that, if you saw his match on HDNet against Necro Butcher, or the match against Steen at, I think it was Richards versus Daniels, you really see that being his strong suit. And I just think people sort of expect too much from, he's in Ring of Honor, that must mean a five-star wrestler. And they're not, not everyone on the roster is meant to do that sort of match. And, if they can find a way for him to contribute, he doesn't necessarily have to do that. So, yeah, Homicide's return and Daniel's return, which we didn't talk about too much, but I think both of those returns are huge assets to Ring of Honor. The familiar faces, they're fan favorites. They have the TNA exposure from TNA Wrestling. They have great history with Ring of Honor, and I think it just adds to it. It really helped to provide a little bit more depth to the mid card and upper card. Whereas, last year with the threat of Danielson and McGuinness leaving, there was a lot of unsurety of what Ring of Honor would do to progress. And, fast forward a year later, they managed to fill those gaps, but then Tyler Black was leaving. And a lot of those same fears always arise when a big name moves from Ring of Honor to either TNA or WWE. But this time, you had Richard sticking around, you had Daniels there already, you had Homicide coming back. There was enough there that even though there were some unfamiliar faces on the bottom of the card and some guys like Aries and Stevens, Dark City Fight Club, Necro Butcher, they were being phased out, there's still enough coming in to sort of balance the scales. And I think the roster is not the strongest it's ever been, but I think it's certainly strong enough right now. And certainly Daniels and Homicide being there helps them out more than it hurts them.
Yeah, we'll get back to the roster later on. I just want to quickly say that the first Ring of Honor show I ever saw was Final Battle 2006 with Homicide winning the belt. And that really, I reassessed everything about Homicide after I saw that. Because I was like, I knew this guy and I loved LAX and TNA. But I was like, whoa, this guy can do things on his own and he's getting a hell of a reaction. And I really got behind him. And I think if they, and especially in New York, as you said, if they can get anything close to a moment like that again, more power to them.
I think that was a huge moment too in Ring of Honor history. It was a huge culmination for Homicide's history. So it was a huge height, and I think that's a thing that Ring of Honor fans really get stuck on, is that they see the top of the roller coaster and they just want to stay there for the entire year. And definitely. Unfortunately, that's not how wrestling and that's not how roller coasters work. Because you got to go back down so that you can build up. And I think that Final Battle 2006, I was there live. It was amazing card, an amazing crowd, and the post-match celebration with Homicide went on for like 15 minutes.
Insane.
And it was just one of the best reactions of a live crowd ever. So it's hard to expect both the promotion and the fans to get up that much, and that's why I think that for Homicide you got to keep your expectations sort of somewhat subdued for him. But I certainly think that there's a lot that can be done with him, and whether it's the Rottweilers reunion or him getting involved in some sort of grudge feud with someone else, or maybe something with Steve Corino. There's so much that can be done with him that if you can't write him off right now. You just got to see what happens with him in the future.
Definitely. And now just to close out the first, before we get on to other aspects of Ring of Honor, such as the tag team division and the Kevin Cena El Generico feud and stuff like that, just to finish off the main event scene, I think the last few months of the year, it wasn't Ring of Honor's fault, but it was kind of weak, because we had Roddy and Davey both in Japan, and they were meant to be the two linchpins of the heavyweight division, well, the main event division, I should say. There are no weight divisions in Ring of Honor. So that hurt. That, they couldn't do anything about that, but it was a bit lackluster, the main event scene at this time. But we did get the return of Survival of the Fittest. We got Ari laying out the most complex preview of anything ever with his Survival of the Fittest preview over at 411 with everyone's odds calculated. Sure. That was a good long read for me, and I was just like, sure, cool, I believe him.
No, the great thing about that is I am never right with, and I think I talked with Rome about this, is I am never right with my picks for Survival of the Fittest. So I do a good. I like doing the annual preview and breaking it down. That I do okay with. But as far as picking the winner, don't bet with me. Bet against me.
I picked Kevin Steen so that he could stay in the company, and then my second pick was Colt Cabana to start off his. So
I'm sorry, Matt.
Yeah,
I really am.
I figured
because I picked Kevin Steen too.
I figured that's how they would kick off Colt Cabana's I'm a wrestler push to get him away. I figured they'd give him Survival of the Fittest, but then he didn't even beat Rhett Titus, so I was like, oh, all right. But Eddie Edwards would win Survival of the Fittest despite a horrific separated shoulder. He was one-armed in that match. Claudio Castagnoli actually dominated and was the star of that match for me because I believe he eliminated Adam Cole, Rhett Titus, and someone else. Kevin Steen he eliminated. So we had that with Eddie Edwards. He's now, like it or not, he's going to get a world title shot at some point on the merit of winning that match. And then
apparently Kevin Ford doesn't like it. No, I don't know what's up with him.
I'm the guy at the site that defends Eddie Edwards and Davey Richards because.
And the funny thing is that 4 years ago I was the guy who did not like Eddie Edwards, and I thought he was sort of a cardboard personality. And I've often and frequently admitted I have been. Well, I wasn't wrong then, but I am wrong now about them, and I have come around on Eddie Edwards big time. And so, Kevin Ford, shame on you.
Indeed. But then the year did end quite well because we had Davey and Roddy finally returning. Each man defeated Christopher Daniels to settle individual feuds because. Daniels actually defeated Roddy while he was the champion in a non-title match on HDNet, and they had their little feud going on, and Roddy beat him. And 6 months in the making, Davey Richards finally defeats Daniels after Daniels got in his face at the Big Bang and said, "You're not the best in the world, I'm the best in the world." But he would find himself tapping out Davey Richards at an event imaginatively titled Richards vs. Daniels. And then it was full speed ahead for Final Battle with Roddy beating Davey, and Homicide defeated Christopher Daniels. And ahead of time, I called that an unofficial number one contenders match, but I think it has actually become an official number one contenders match because we've learned that Homicide will get a world title shot at the Chicago pay-per-view. So that was the end of the year. So. What were your thoughts on the main event scene in this final part of the year with Survival of the Fittest? We've covered that, but with Davey and Roddy and Daniels and Homicide.
Yeah, I mean, the 6 months of the making match, the Daniels versus Richards, and I really thought that that definitely lived up to the billing. Was more than worth the wait. An excellent match and a great main event to the DVD. And it was a really good show too. I wish that Daniels maybe got more of a chance in the main event scene before moving on to Homicide. But what are you going to do about that? They did use Daniels in the TV title situation, which I guess we'll talk about in a little bit. But I think the one defense was Strong defeating Daniels at Fate of an Angel 2. That worked out well for them. And you were right, it was a little bit slower because both Strong and Edwards were in Japan on tour. So it was about 6 weeks or 8 weeks before Strong really appeared on any house shows. And he was on HDNet, but they didn't really show him with the title. So there was a little bit of a weak spot there. But, in the end, I think they pulled out of that pretty okay. They've had to do that before with Danielson and McGinnis because of an injury. So I think entering 2011, it's looking like Strong will get a good, decent run with the title and face a couple challengers. And I think obviously the big rematch is going to be with Davey Richards down the line.
Yeah, because nothing was really settled, as we said, and. So that's the end of the main event scene kind of for 2010. Now, I'm about to ask the impossible because I want us to talk about Kevin Steen versus El Generico, and I think we could probably fill an entire podcast
Yeah.
based on this feud alone. But I'm going to try and sum it up and then get just some as quick as possible opinions on it. But I mean, it obviously started with Steen threatening to retire at Final Battle '09 and then blasting Generico with the chair and declaring he hated him all along. And just this feud, there's been nothing like it in a very long time because they did not have a singles match for 6 months. They only had 3 singles matches in total over the course of the year. And we got 2 rounds of Pick Your Poison, a plethora of violent tag team matches involving Colt Cabana and Steve Corino, endless promos, mind games, run-ins, weapons, Steen unmasking El Generico very quickly, and then the huge blow-off match with the crazy stipulations, and of course with Generico defeating Steen. Steen is gone from Ring of Honor, and according to a recent interview, it seems that is legit, and he is indeed gone, perhaps permanently, from Ring of Honor. But I mean, I don't really know where to start with this, but it was undoubtedly the feud of the year. It was the second big, arguably it was, the biggest storyline of the year for Ring of Honor. There were times where it took a bit of a backseat to other stories, but whenever they were in trouble, they lent on this feud, and it took over the main event. And I don't even know. Say some things about this.
Sure. And I think the big psychological sort of the curve was, Generico's willingness to fight. He had been betrayed by Kevin Steen, who was his longtime tag team partner for many years. They'd been tag team champions for quite a while, and then they fought against the American Bulls, and he had come to trust him so much. And when Kevin Steen was supposedly going to do his retirement at Final Battle 2009, and he hugged Generico. Generico was crying, and then Steen kicked him low and hit him with a chair right in the frickin' head. It was a huge chair shot.
Right in the frickin' head.
Right in the frickin' head. And it was a betrayal of trust. And it was something Generico, in the storyline, basically couldn't get over, couldn't reconcile. So Colt Cabana, who had been a friend to both Steen and Generico, gets involved and questions Steen, and Steen doesn't want him to get involved. Steve Corino is revealed as sort of this master manipulator who has convinced Kevin Steen that he didn't need Generico, that he could be going on to singles gold all on his own, and to break away from Generico, and that's what he did. And so they warn Cabana not to get involved. Cabana says, forget that, I want to help Generico, and we're going to make Generico confident again. So you really sort of see the travel between Generico's confidence and his willingness to fight back against Kevin Steen. He couldn't quite do it in the first quarter of the year, ending up to the Big Bang when Corino and Steen had Cabana cornered, and finally Generico comes running in during their tag match, and he gives the big old lay boot and to Kevin Steen and fights back and goes crazy, and from there on you're off to the races, and you have Steen and Generico. You have the tag match at Better Friends, Stiffer Enemies, where they're just fighting all over the place, and it's actually my second favorite match of the year, and just one hell of a spectacle. The Street Fight rematch on HDNet was not far off as far as telling a great story and having some violent stuff happen at the end. They had a steel cage match on HDNet around a few months later, where Steen trapped Cabana and Generico was trying to fight. You had the first one-on-one match where Steen cheated to win, but Generico gave his all, and then came back later to choke him with a tie. Sort of a reference to Bryan Danielson, a.k.a. Daniel Bryan, and what happened with him in WWE. And I thought that was a genius bit of plotting right there. You had the rematch at Hate Chapter 2, which ended when Generico went for the springboard, or not springboard, the run-through DDT from in between the turnbuckles on to the outside.
It's an indescribable move. I try to say, that DDT
it's a fantastic move.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, and Steen wallops him again with a chair and gets the DQ call. So Generico wins that match by DQ, but he didn't necessarily pin him or submit him. That leads to Kevin Steen chokes him with the chain after the match. That leads to the double chain match, Glory Bono 9. We're missing the Supercard of Honor 5 match where Cabana and Steen go at it because Cabana had bloodied up Steen tremendously. Bloodied up Carino tremendously, so Steen wanted revenge. Colby Carino gets involved in that match, and Colby Carino, Steve Carino's son, gets involved at Glory Honor 9. They chain up Cabana. Generico rushes in to save him. They have a big miracle comeback where Cabana gets Carino to tap out. And then a big scrum at the end where Generico and Steen fight. It looks like Generico is going to get Steen up for the turnbuckle brainbuster, but he can't do it. And then in the process, Steen pulls off the mask, and Generico immediately covers up and runs out. And basically Steen does sort of this ultimate evil, just going way over the top by recreating this T-shirt that they were selling with a headless El Generico on a chair that said Mr. Wrestling and blood on it. He used Steve Carino's blood and Generico's mask and a steel chair, and he created a Picasso work of art. And it was amazing. It was the most ridiculous, disgusting, perverted yet thrilling, perversely thrilling scenario ever in Ring of Honor. It was
just grand heel, just ultimate heel.
It was a sort of heel act that you just rarely see in wrestling, but yet it's such a master stroke that you wonder why it doesn't happen more often. I mean, it's like a CM Punk level type heel move.
Yeah.
So, kudos to Steve. Kudos to everyone involved for that. What a great angle. And that sort of got you into the final section where Generico was once again, Generico had gone from being unable to fight to being willing to fight to now being transformed because he was embarrassed and Steen had his mask. He wore a dark of his mask and became a little bit more darker and brooding. And, Steen had lost control of himself. Carino said he couldn't control his protege. Cabana had sort of settled the differences and said that it was time for Generico to sort of prove it on his own, that he took him as far as he could go, and he had to man up and do it on his own. And that led to Final Battle 2010, where Generico does get his final comeuppance, and Steen is served justice. It was a mask versus career match, but instead of Generico being unmasked again, it was Steen losing, and it was a hell of a match and a hell of a feud. It was grand wrestling storytelling. It was actually very easy to follow and very easy to understand. There were some subtleties, but there was nothing, there were no grand master swerves. It was just point A to B to C to D, and sort of everything fit together. Everything was sort of woven together very, very naturally, and I think it really told a great story. It got over 4 people, and at the time, Cabana was sort of wavering. He had come back from WWE, but he wasn't really doing anything all that great. Steve Carino had just come back, but really didn't know what was going to happen with him. And Steen and Generico were at the top of the tag division, but, obviously there was something that could be said for them doing something new after losing the ladder war match. So this was a brand new direction for all 4 characters. It got all 4 of them over. It took up a year's worth of time and led to amazing DVDs that were matches that were much worth watching, and I can't speak highly enough about this feud. It was just an awesome wrestling storyline.
Yeah, I think
that's why we watch wrestling.
It is. I think the greatest strength of this feud was you kind of knew that it was going to go a whole year, but to me personally, it never felt like they were just doing something for the sake of extending the feud. Each bit made sense, and there was always something new, and like you said, it was very simple, and yet there were still these subtleties for this is for you, the people that are paying more attention. There's an extra something for you, but if you don't follow every show, you can still understand this feud, because as you said, it was very simple, and the best promos of the year by far from Steen, and his open letters, and I actually really liked one of the first promos he cut in the whole feud when Cabana confronted him and he flipped and headbutted the wall, and he was saying stuff like, years ago you wouldn't give me the time of day, and now you're saying, oh, we're all friends, and it just
Right.
it got over this really like every villain thinks they're the hero in their own little story, and you could see that from Steen, where you could see where he thought he was justified. And when he came out at Epic Encounter 3 and cut this incredible promo explaining the entire thing, and it was just like you could kind of see his
Right.
side of it, and yet he was so maniacal in the way he went about things. And I think one of my favorite part, like Generico, I think he looked a little bit ridiculous as Dark Generico, but Steen as completely out of his mind at the end of this feud, that was incredible. With Carino basically washing his hands of him and just sort of giving him this funny look as he would do these insane things. I just thought it was so strong. Like I think it was the last episode of HD Net before Final Battle, Steen put the mask on Carino's hand and was like spitting on it, and Carino normally had been like encouraging him and clapping him, and he was just sort of looking at Steen, utterly perplexed. And that was great. I thought it was incredible. Like he just seemed like he genuinely lost his mind, and I thought it was just incredible storytelling and the way that this was all he cared about.
There's nothing that Steve wouldn't do or wouldn't say in reaction during this year. He kissed fans. He bled and licked blood and drank blood. He, as I said, he recreated the Headless Generico shirt. He called out fans. He did so much just to, whether it was to disgust fans or to just inform them about his villainy. It just all worked, and that's for my money, he's definitely one of the MVPs of the year. He's and probably the best villain Ring of Honor seen in quite a long time, maybe since Punk, which is why I brought him up before. Maybe since the summer of Punk. Yeah. There's just the lines he crossed that as a heel he can cross, but they shouldn't be crossing it, but he's doing it because in the end he's going to get his just desserts, and I think it worked wonders.
I'm going to dance on
your getting over.
I'm going to dance on your grave, Colt. I'm going to dance on your grave. I don't even know how to dance. I'm going to learn how to dance so I can dance on your grave.
Yeah, that was an amazing moment. Yes, the straitjacket was sort of this moment where okay, he's going to be in a straitjacket, whatever. But he made that moment so amazing. Both the backstage promo you just basically quoted word for word what he said to Colt Cabana before the I Quit match with Steve Corino at Richards versus Daniels DVD and the show, and it was just something like that, a statement like that, or telling Generico that he would rather die than be in the same room.
Stab himself in the heart with a butcher's knife and choke in his own blood. It's just like beautifully visceral and feral.
Exactly. It's Shakespeare. It's total Shakespeare.
It is. You know who he is? He's the Raven of ROH. When Raven was completely out of control and just painted these elegant pictures of disturbing beauty, and it was just like when Raven was getting the Sandman's son to be his worshipper. It was stuff like that. Like he was just deranged, but you couldn't help but applaud the way he did it.
Exactly.
Right. I'm going to have to say that's all the Steen and Generico talk we can do for now, because, as I said, we could go forever. But we're going to move on. Olé, there you go. We're going to move on to the tag team division. It would not be an ROH discussion if we did not talk about the tag team division. So we started out the year with the Briscoes as the brand new champions, but we also started out the year with the newly reformed Kings of Wrestling, and they declared war on them. They ended Final Battle 2009. They seemingly saved the riot by brawling through it. But anyway, the Kings would actually take the belts from the Briscoes at the Big Bang in their first attempt. And, if there weren't all these other Match of the Year contenders, that would probably be one. Like, I think a lot of people have slept on that match. That was a really good match those two had. With
it's in my top 10 for sure.
Yeah. With Jay Briscoe vomiting after the match from being hit so hard from an elbow, and that was kind of cool. And then
not from my perspective. I did not like to see people vomiting.
oh
but okay.
yeah, sure. For Jay's safety, it sucked, but it was one of those moments where it's like, I know I shouldn't find that cool, but that's awesome. Um, and the Kings, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, you're getting a window into why I like Kevin Steen, I guess. Um, the Kings would defeat the Briscoes again at Death Before Dishonor in a brutal. They called it a no DQ match, but that's a fight without honor where I come from. And then they beat them again on HDNet. And so they said they would not defend the belt against them anymore. And along the way of this feud, the Briscoes, they gave Sarah Del Rey a beatdown. Jay gave her the J Driller. So Chris Hero naturally responded by knocking out their father, Mike Papa Briscoe, who, so while the professional side of the feud ended, when they wouldn't get any more title matches, the personal side of their issue would go all the way to Final Battle, making it another 1 year feud. I mean, they went off and did their own things along the way, but that was so they kept that going to Final Battle, and it would actually be a 6-man tag, as we all know, with the Briscoes teaming with their father against the Kings of Wrestling and Shane Hagedorn, who'd had his own issues with Mike Briscoe, and Papa Briscoe, he got in that ring and he wrestled, and he did a tilt-a-whirl head scissors, and he did a Doomsday Device, and he pinned Shane Hagedorn. And there was. I guess we should probably just stop and talk about that first before we just talk about the rest of the tag team division, because this was the landmark feud of the tag teams of the Kings of Wrestling and the Briscoes. So what were your thoughts on how this feud was handled?
Yeah, absolutely. It was the landmark feud of the year, as you said, for the tag team division. And I think almost from the beginning you knew that the Kings were destined for the titles. They were destined for a big series against the Briscoes. They called them out at Final Battle 2009, and pretty much every major event that followed saw a huge Briscoes Kings of Wrestling face-off. And I think it worked. Back in 2006, we talked about 2006 before, but the Briscoes versus Kings of Wrestling had a 2-match set at International Challenge, which was the night before Final Battle 06, and then at Final Battle of that year, and it was just great matches. I mean, they weren't all-time greats, but they were sort of like, at the time Claudia was thought to have been leaving, so we didn't know that this was not going to be the last time this was possible, but it was a huge sort of landmark for both teams, and sort of an indication of how good they had become. And the Kings reformed, and to be able to see them fight the Briscoes again was a huge treat. So as far as the Big Bang match, you mentioned that before. It was great, just 30 minutes of nonstop action, with the storyline being that the Briscoes had sort of the early advantage, and then the Kings just sort of kept withering away at them, and Hero's big power moves discombobulated Jay, and that's sort of what led to the win. They had also, throughout the beginning of the year, used the KO elbow, and the golden elbow pad to sort of get some major wins and keep the title, especially against the Briscoes, win the title and keep the title at the Death Before Dishonor match. And so not only was this a personal feud, but it was also, a feud that was based around, the Kings cheating to win. And even though they won against other teams, through, non-cheating methods, the fact that they have to cheat constantly against the Briscoes, because the Briscoes had their number except for, a distraction like Shane Hagedorn or by Sarah Del Rey, or using the elbow pad at the right moment to knock out one of the Briscoes. And then, when the feud got personal, obviously, the Supercard Honor 5 match we talked about before with the Machine Guns and Kings ended when the Briscoes ran in. They stopped the KO elbow from being used with the elbow pad, and they put the J Drill on Sarah Del Rey, which, as you said, led to the Chris Hero Mike Papa Briscoe encounter, sort of tit for tat. And I think that worked. I think live at Final Battle 2010, the New York crowd sort of maybe resented the Briscoes for the Supercard. I think actually there were a number of reasons why they got a mixed reaction. One is they resented them for the interference in Supercard of 5. And I think part of it was they looked at Mike Briscoe as, he's not a wrestler, he's just an old man. And then I think they quickly sort of turned to his side when his personality got over and he did all these big wacky moves, like he pummeled Shane, and then he gave Claudio a stunner late in the match, did a head scissors, then the Doomsday Device. So, Papa Briscoe I thought was a very good compliment to the Briscoe act. They've been around ever since the beginning, really, of Ring of Honor, and this is sort of a new dimension and a new sort of part of their gimmick that hasn't been followed up on in years past. So this is something fresh and different, and as long as it's not overused, I think they can go back to Mike Briscoe and have him be an active part of the Briscoe family on TV or DVD, and really do some different things with it. So I welcomed his inclusion. As far as the way the feud ended, it sort of fizzled out sometime late in the year, such that you knew the Briscoes weren't going to regain the titles, and the 6-man tag may have come a little bit too late, but it was fair enough. It was a good way for the Briscoes to win the feud without having to win the titles. The last match they had on HDNet with the last title shot ended with Shane Hagedorn giving Jay a low blow. That I wasn't a fan of. Wasn't a fan of that finish. I thought they could have done something stronger to sort of indicate that the Briscoes had more fight left in them. A low blow doesn't really do it for me these days.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's what she said. Yeah.
I hate that finish.
Sorry.
I hate that finish when it's a low blow directly into a pin. I think a low blow should set up another move. I don't buy a low blow as pinning someone. I buy it hurts. I know it hurts. But I don't buy it. I don't buy it as being concussive enough to keep a man down for 3. So I thought it should.
Well, they're the motherfucking Briscoes. Excuse my language. But and the thing was, Shane had teased the spike pile driver before, and if he had done a spike pile driver, then hell yeah, of course that makes sense. But a low blow from Shane Hagedorn, come on. If it was, even if it was Claudio and Hero, maybe they did a double low blow together. Okay, fair enough, but it's Shane Hagedorn. I mean, it's not going to cut it. So it was an anticlimactic finish as far as their tag title matches go, but I thought the right finish for the overall feud when, basically Mike, Papa Briscoe hit the device onto Shane, and then I think it was Jay covered for the pin. So all's well that ends well. The Briscoes get sort of the moral victory, the Kings of Wrestling. They stay as champs into 2011.
Yeah, and so it wasn't just a two-team act this year. We also had, the Kings knocked off the All Night Express, the Dark Seat. Well, actually, they haven't knocked them off, but the All Night Express have been around. The Dark Seat Fight Club were there, the Bravado Brothers. Then we had the guest stars like the Motor City Machine Guns, the Young Bucks, aka Generation Me. And the ones that got everybody talking, Shelton Benjamin and Charlie Haas, wrestling's greatest tag team. And the Kings defeated or retained against every single one of these teams in some way or another. And they even kept the belts in the returning Tag Wars tournament. And there's a new team emerging in Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly, but we'll talk about them later on. But just in terms of the tag team division, beyond the Kings Briscoes feud, in terms of the quality of the teams, and touch on the Tag Wars tournament as well. But what were your thoughts on the tag team division in 2010 beyond just the Kings and the Briscoes?
Written several times in my column that this has been the last 2 or 3. Ring of Honor has consistently had over the last several years the strongest tag division in any promotion, and it's sort of a testament to the fact that they pay so much attention to it, that there's such consistency that even though there are different teams now than there were several years ago, that the tag division is still at a high quality. Although entering 2011, there are less teams and probably threatening to maybe take a dip in quality. But this past year, I mean, if you just run down the list, Briscoes, Kings of Wrestling, the American Wolves were still teaming. You had the Super Smash Brothers making infrequent appearances, but several important matches on HDNet against the Wolves and the Kings. You had Up in Smoke in the beginning of the year. You had the You had Generico and Cabana teaming up against different teams. You had Steen and Carino teaming up against different teams.
The House of Truth.
House of Truth. Unfortunately, Josh Raymond retired, but there should be a new version of that coming out this year, led by Truth Martini. So, and then you could go on and on. All Night Express, they took on Austin Aries as a manager. They got more serious. Their in-ring work went up dramatically, and they're poised to make a big impact in 2011. You mentioned Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly. They're show stealers right away. They immediately proven that they're good enough to be in Ring of Honor, and immediately proven that they're deserving of respect, and put on great matches. There's just no doubt about it. They're a team to watch in 2011. So the tag team division, and you compare it to what WWE has, when you have Santino and Kozlov as tag team champions, and you break up every team, 2 months of them forming, it's just, it's such a shame. And I look back, I was a big WWE, I used to watch, but, it's like, when I was a fan in the mid to late 80s, when I was just starting, I was just starting to become a really big fan, and all the big tag team scene that they had there. They had, you had like 10 teams for the Survivor Series matches, and you had the Hart Foundation, and you had the Roll Warriors, Legion of Doom, you had Demolition, you had Strike Force, you had the British Bulldogs, the Killer Bees, for Christ's sake.
Damn it! I was going to say you forgot the best team of them all, the Killer Bees.
There you go. So it's and just compare it to the way it is today in WWE. And TNA does okay, but, they're always more,
TNA like to talk about how they have the best division. Ring of Honor actually has the best division.
They have Beer Money, and they have Motor City Machine Guns and Generation Me, and that's about it. Don't get me wrong.
They have Kiyoshi and Okada sometimes. Gunner and Murphy.
I don't know. Go on, pull the other one.
Gunner and Murphy.
I just don't think that they don't have the number of teams, or they didn't have the number of teams to Ring of Honor this year. And it's clear Ring of Honor's tag division was, one of the best parts of the promotion this year. You could always count on the American Wolves to put in a great main event match. They did so at the WrestleMania weekend against the Briscoes from the Ashes. They did so against the Kings of Wrestling just this past 2 weeks ago in Plymouth, which was supposedly their last match of the team.
Yeah.
Fortunate. So, again, 2010 was a strong year for the tag division. I think 2011 is going to be a big challenge for them because, as I just said, the Wolves might not be teaming up as a regular team. They do have wrestling's greatest tag team of Benjamin and Haas coming in, which is a very big plus. It's a fresh team. It gives them something else on the upper card to mix in. And I'd expect them to be tag team champions at some point in the next year. And some of the other smaller teams are not. But, overall, it's still in a decent position to add to any Ring of Honor show. So I was impressed. I thought that, it was great to see teams like the Machine Guns and their Generation Me. They made appearances when we thought they wouldn't show up. So kudos to Ring of Honor for negotiating for their appearances. And I hope maybe we can start to see some other independent tag teams come in, maybe get Paul London in and do Peligro or Brejas with Generico. That'd be pretty cool. It's just, the sky is even though there's sort of a reduction in the number of teams, that also means there's another opportunity to rebuild it just as strong as it always was.
Yeah, and I just want to give props again to the Super Smash Bros. Because I think dating back to last year when they had their double shot against the Briscoes and Stinerico, I think they've now had a really, really good match with every major team that Ring of Honor has. Their match on HDNet against the Kings That was an awesome match, and then they had an even better one against the Wolves, I think. So I'd like to see them come in more often as well.
Why aren't they coming in? This is something I'm in the 411 buy or sell that's coming out that I read about. It's get the Super Smash Brothers in, man.
Yeah, man.
They are one of the most underrated teams on the independent tag team division, and they've sort of, in a way, appeared from the scene for the last couple of months. They're not booked together in Chikara. They're not booked in Ring of Honor, except for 1 or 2 HD net tapings, and not the last few ones. Get them in, have them contribute, because they've improved a hell of a lot. Player Dos especially, since his Stupefied days, he's gone from being a very big spot-tastic kind of guy to someone who's, really great at the aerial game, but has controlled himself there to really maximize when it works, in a match. And they're, the tag team chemistry between the two is great. They have a great gimmick. They're fan favorites. The fans like to see them. So bring them in. Give them a couple wins even,
Definitely. Okay, moving on. We've got another huge change for Ring of Honor this year was the inception of a brand new singles championship. After all this time, since the failure of the Pure title, we have the Ring of Honor World Television title. And, of course, the tournament was held to crown the first champion, and the finals would pit the American Wolves against each other in a fan's dream match. And it was actually Eddie Edwards tapping out Davey Richards in the finals to become the first champion. And the story for the first half of his reign was that he insisted his challengers earn their shot by surviving 10 minutes against him, and he faced a lot of questionable opposition, including Mike Seidel. I know, everyone calm down. And then, as Davey Richards turned face and moved away from Shane Hagedorn, Eddie Edwards did the same, and it was Shane sort of getting under Eddie's skin, and it was kind of like Eddie's pride led to him saying, no, I'm going to defend this title. And then he knocked off a lot of challengers in a short space of time. He beat Kenny King, Rhett Titus, Colt Cabana twice, I think, in a short space of time. He beat Mark Briscoe just before he lost the belt. And much to the annoyance of Prince Nana, he beat the Necro Butcher, Eric Stevens, and Sean Devari, earning him the nickname from me, Eddie Embassy Killer Edwards, because he beat them all and now they're gone. So, you tell
me.
But Eddie would ultimately lose the titles to Christopher Daniels in the most recent set of TV tapings. I don't know whether to count that as part of 2010 because we won't see it and it won't become canon, if you will, until 2011. But then Daniels went into Final Battle as the TV champion and they acknowledged it that way. So I guess we can kind of count it. But what are your thoughts on the TV title, how it's gone so far, and the need, whether there was a need for it, where it stands in comparison to the world title, and the kind of job that you think Eddie Edwards did as the champion?
Well, first of all, I'll make no bones about it. The TV title tournament was really good, but and obviously the finals of was match. Sort of reminiscent of the Bulldogo and Hart match from '96, but with the European title debuting, where they just sort of had tag team partners who knew each other very well, sort of going at it in a technical classic. I loved it, and unfortunately, from that point on, for about the next 4 or 5 months, the booking of the title sucked ass. Again, excuse the language. And again, this is something that, again, if people think that I'm, full homer for Ring of Honor, here's something in which I thought they completely dropped the ball with. When is a television title, as I wrote in my column, when is a television title not a television title? When it's not defended on TV, of course. And, there was no television title defenses for the first 5 months of the TV title. You had Eddie Edwards going out there doing his stupid 10-minute hunt challenge. It's not really his idea, but it framed it. They had this logo that made it look like some stupid, wacky 70s game show with the shining lights and all that. And
come on down and tap out to the Achilles lock.
Bob, it's just like, why? Why would you do? It's like, obviously, okay, I get the idea. Why is to build up a challenger, but a challenger was never built up. And instead, you had Edwards, knocking down and insulting these people. He had been getting cheers, but he was acting like a heel here. He defended the TV title on some house shows, but it was never mentioned on TV. No highlights were ever given. So the first 4 to 5 months was an utter failure, I think, for the TV title. I think the big turnaround actually was in the fall when Edwards broke free from Shagdorn in the storyline and became the fighting champion. And they did. I think this is part of the booking change, which we didn't talk about officially. But when the booking change changed from Adam Pearce to Delirious, there was more of a decided approach about the TV title and more regular, constant exposure, defending the title, the champion Edwards on TV. And you went through the list of people he fought on TV and he wrestled against them, and wrestling these matches and then putting on great matches and then entertaining the crowd. He got himself over, he got the TV title over, and they did a big course correction on the booking of the TV title, and it works. Obviously, I think Edwards had a little bit of left in him as champion. I thought the change was abrupt, and my sneaking suspicion is there are 2 major reasons why they changed the title from Edwards to Daniels, and actually 3. The first would be because Daniels signed a contract with Ring of Honor, so they wanted to sort of maybe give him something to run with in 2011, give him a storyline there, so make him the champion, and obviously build up Mike Bennett. But whatever. The less said about their use of him as the project, the better, in my mind. Anyway, what was I saying? Yes, so Daniels had signed a contract. Number 2 was that Edwards is going off to Noah for an extended tour of Japan early in the 2011. So my guess is that he won't be around to make those HDNet appearances and defend the title. So it makes sense in that way to transition the title to someone else. And then obviously the third one is that the title was changed on the first ever Louisville, Kentucky HDNet tapings. The first time HDNet, in either 2009 or 2010, had taped outside of the arena in Philadelphia. And I think that Ring of Honor and Delirious and Cornette in the booking wanted to give the Louisville crowd probably something important, and the title change would pretty much file under that category of something important to get to the crowds to make them happy.
Yeah.
So that's why we have, I think, Christopher Daniels as a TV champion. I love Christopher Daniels as a wrestler. I'm not against this title change at all, as far as it going to him. But I would have liked to see Edwards close out the year as champion and sort of head into 2011 defending against all comers. But that's my dream world, and we're not really living in it right now. So,
in my dream world, they would have booked Roderick Strong and Eddie Edwards against the Kings of Wrestling, because not only would it have been all 4 champions, but it would be the two teams that went on tours of Noah and both won the hearts of the Japanese fans. I thought that would have been quite an interesting match to have, because
Well, in my dream world, I think it would involve something with SoCal Val and
okay, not maybe, that kind of dream.
Maybe Rebby Sky and Rita Von Tash. I see what you're saying. Sure.
Let's bring it back to the half-naked dudes kind of dream world. Okay, it's a family show.
Fair enough. Fair cop.
Okay. Yeah, I thought it was. I thought it was needed to have this mid-card title that they never had, because the pure title, it kind of was mid-card. It kind of was a secondary. It was sort of like a main event belt, but with different rules. So I thought it was good that they finally brought this in. It's something that's built for people like Rhett Titus, and in theory Colt Cabana, and it did Eddie Edwards a world of good, and it's brought him to the point where I think some people are still quite resistant of him being in the main event, but he gets a lot of reaction from the fans, and I think Final Battle proved that, because he didn't have the belt anymore, and Sanjay Dutt is a guy that he sometimes gets big pops. I hate Sanjay Dutt. I think he steals so many moves and it has this expectancy of fan approval, but that's another rant for another time. But Eddie looked like a star in that match, and the fans just absolutely gave it to him, and they applauded him no end when he beat the hell out of Sanjay Dutt and made Sanjay look.
Yeah, Edwards has gotten over this year. I think that was one of the big projects Richards had talked about in the American Wolves, was that to get Eddie Edwards over, and I think they've succeeded with that. And I think Edwards, and I'd said it before, he's come a long way, and I am definitely sold on him as a top single star. As Ring of Honor World Champion, I don't know. There's a lot of sort of packed at the top right now. I would rather see Davey Richards win, but I can definitely see him contributing very legitimately to the top of the card. And for a guy who started out in Ring of Honor, started jobbing out and being an early match guy and just appearing in the Massachusetts cards, and to come this far, it obviously says a lot about him. And their confidence in him. So even though he's no longer the TV champion, I think being the first TV champion has helped him out. And I obviously think being the tag team champion in 2009 was the start of it all.
I've got two more big stories. They shouldn't take too long to discuss because we kind of touched on them both earlier. But the first is the roster has changed a lot in the course of a year. We've lost Tyler Black, Austin Aries, Delirious, the Duxie Fight Club, Rashi Brown, Eric Stevens, Necro Butcher. Davari debuted and left in the same year, I think. A lot of guys have gone. Yeah. And Christopher Daniels, Homicide, Steve Corino, Mike Bennett, Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly. Some others I'm probably forgetting. They're sort of fresh faces. Well, some of them aren't fresh, but they're new in 2010. They are new again. And we've got a lot of wrestlers who've been locked into long-term contracts. Davey Richards, Roderick Strong, the Kings of Wrestling, Kenny King. So many others have been locked into contracts. So we've got this roster is almost... It's very different than it was a year ago. And it's sort of still continuing to... It's still transforming a bit with these new guys coming in. So I just want your thoughts on just the roster changes, really, and how the roster looks heading into 2011.
Well, I think obviously the Tyler Black departure is something that couldn't be avoided. He wanted to go to WWE, and more power to him, and I obviously wish him great success, and I hope that he gets that opportunity to succeed that he deserves. He deserves a chance to prove himself there. So he was gone, and there really wasn't anything we could do about that. I do have to question the departure of Austin Aries. I think that's more of a political thing than a talent thing. Aries is, in my opinion, super talented, and as much part of the success story of Ring of Honor in the 2004, 2005, and 2006 as anybody during that time frame with the Generation Me storyline and becoming Ring of Honor champion. He's the only two-time Ring of Honor World Champion, and I think that deserves some respect. They obviously felt that he could carry the company several times, so I'm not really sure. When you hear about him being sort of rude or kind of a backstage issue or whatever, which again I can't speak to, but in my opinion it really shouldn't deter him from being used on the roster. I think losing Aries is a bit of a big hit. I think losing Steen for similar, it seems, political reasons, at least on the surface. Maybe we're being kayfabed on that. Maybe Steen will come back later on under a mask or in some sort of angle, and I would like to see that. But I think losing Steen for political reasons also kind of sucks. I think you hear in interviews from a lot of the Ring of Honor guys that there are no politics in Ring of Honor, but I think that's bullshit. I think there's politics in it. I think there's politics in anything, and I think you've seen the sort of the cost of that with the departure of Aries and in some respects the departure of Steen, and learning that Steen was supposed to be part of the original cuts of talent like Stevens and Dark City Fight Club, but for the fact that because he maybe did some things that he was told not to do or whatever as a part of his act, and broke some cameras or something. I mean, whatever. Come on.
Yeah.
and to see that he wasn't cut because they wanted to finish up the storyline, you hear that stuff and it's just like, oh my God, what the heck is going on?
Yeah.
On the other hand, I think Ring of Honor did a good job of shoring up their roster. They signed up the talents they wanted to sign up to contracts, and they felt they can contribute in 2011. And you can see that. I mean, they signed up the top half. Even though even Christopher Daniels signed with them, and then Shelton Benjamin and Charlie Haas signed with them. So I'm sure that not having to pay for Aries and Stina sort of opened up the money a little bit for them to pay for those guys. And with low key Caval being released, maybe he'll jump on and add a little bit more to the roster. But you definitely see guys like Strong and American Wolves and the Kings of Wrestling and the Briscoes. They committed to Ring of Honor for 2011 and the All Night Express, and then the younger guys like O'Reilly and Cole and Mike Bennett, and they sign contracts, and you see them getting the benefit of added attention. And whether or not they succeed on the merits of that, we'll see. But because they've signed contracts, they're going to get that opportunity to succeed in 2011. They're going to be focused on. So Ring of Honor does have a good core on the roster. I think obviously Dragon Gate USA also signing different wrestlers like Chuck Taylor and Ricochet to contracts has sort of taken away sort of the free agent pool, so to speak, of the American independent scene. There's still plenty of great talented wrestlers to draw from, but a lot of the more upper card name guys, there's this obvious divide between those who will wrestle for Ring of Honor and those who will wrestle for the Gabe Sapolsky properties, DGUSA and Evolve. And it's a shame to not see a guy like Chuck Taylor get the opportunity he really deserved a long time ago to be in Ring of Honor, or to have Ricochet get a chance, But they signed with Dragon Gate USA, and they'll provide for those companies. And who's to say in the years to come they won't sign over with Ring of Honor, and Ring of Honor won't find other people. For now, I think it's a solid enough roster. It's maybe not as star-studded or there's maybe not enough sizzle, but I think it's going to get the job done.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit small. I think they could do with getting some other guys in there, maybe not contracted wrestlers, but some guys that they know will be. That's the thing I really don't like about this Evolve Dragon Gate, versus Ring of Honor thing. I don't like this feud that there is, where it's like, you're with Gabe or you're with Carrie, and like Ring of Honor, the beauty of it was always like an all-stars of indie wrestling thing where, maybe there were politics between the companies, but just, a wrestler would come into Ring of Honor and show what he could do, even if it was only for a few matches. And I think it kind of sucks that we've now reached this point where, the battle lines are drawn, and like I would love to see Jon Moxley, in Ring of Honor. I would love to see Chuck Taylor, Johnny Gargano. But, I guess we're not going to. But I think I think they did really well in getting Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly. Like, that can't be said enough, because those guys are going to be big. And, like, people are complaining that they're a tag team. I think it makes sense. I think it's like, sort of breaking the fourth wall a bit and saying these guys are going to be big and they're going to both show you what they can do. And it's like they're kind of scrapping together to earn their spot. They're kind of like a mini generation next.
I was just gonna say that. Very good, Matt.
Thank you. And like their tag team, it does seem a bit random. I think they need to, in some way, have them cut a promo on camera about how, we're here to gain respect. 10-second, done, and it makes sense. But aside from that, they're doing really well at making it work, and I think Final Battle, like that was a star-making performance. Those guys are over as hell now, and
absolutely,
Kyle O'Reilly is going to be a main event talent, no doubt. Adam Cole, he may not be a world title contender, but he's still, Chuck Taylor said it annoys him that he's never going to make as much money in wrestling as Adam Cole will, and that's probably true. But yeah, I think they did very well to steal those two guys away, and I guess we have to talk about Mike Bennett. They've gone wrong. Like, the way I put it was, the way they've so over promoted him, he's either going to sink or swim, and I think the way it's going to be is he's going to tread water, and treading water ordinarily is good enough, but in this situation, he's got to swim like a champion, or he's going to, sink to the very bottom of the ocean, and they've oversold him so much that he has to be phenomenal, or he's a failure. And
this is not a knock against. I've had a couple of disparaging comments against Bennett, but it's not a knock against him as a person or as a wrestler. It's just, if you're built as the prodigy and you've been given such hype, then you need to live up to it. He needed to be the Alberto Del Rio of this promotion, to come in and cause a great amount of antagonism and a great amount of heat. And even just by his Final Battle 2010 appearance, I mean, you can tell he's very ice cold at this point. The fans don't really know how to. They don't care. They haven't taken to him. There's still time to turn around that, and I think obviously it's a Cornette priority for him to work on Bennett and get that over. I mean, it really does seem like a Bennett Cornette property. It's written all over it.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to see that in the HD net be more focused on him and the TV title, and I'm pulling for it. I really want to be convinced that it's going to work, but it's sort of like lukewarm at this point, or I said ice cold.
Yeah.
But either way, whatever phrase or colloquialism you want to use, it's not getting off to a great start right now.
I'm the same way. Like I like the idea of it working, because Ring of Honor never do this. They never have a guy come in and immediately be a main event guy unless they're already a name. They don't make main event stars. WWE do that. Yeah. They have guys debut, attack a big guy, and it's like, oh, this is why you should think this guy's amazing. And Ring of Honor don't do it, and I'd like to see them do it. Like a Brock, he's never going to be Brock Lesnar, but when Brock Lesnar was huge, because he just came in and immediately it was like, this guy's good, and I would like to see Ring of Honor pull that off on a smaller scale, but it doesn't look like they're going to quite get
I think I like Bennett on the microphone. Here's the thing. I think the problem is he's treading a lot of the same water that Roderick Strong is doing right now. I mean, you got a guy with a manager, kind of a scummy manager, who wears a very nice suit and wears it very well. He talks better than Roderick Strong. Not as good as a wrestler as Roderick Strong, but he has sort of that generic. I hate to use the term vanilla midget, but he's very sort of generic strongman technical wrestler. It's sort of like he's got the muscles, he's got the guy in tights look, but it's like we already have Roderick Strong. It's like we don't need another one. So I'm hoping there's something that can differentiate the two and sort of make Bennett stand out. And I wish him the best of luck. I really do. I really think that he's got potential. I just don't know if the way they've used him is the smart way to do it. So we'll see. I could be completely wrong. I've been completely wrong in the past. So
Yeah.
I picked Kevin Steen to win Survival of the Fittest 2010. God damn it.
So did I.
So who knows?
I'd like to see him be a powerhouse. I think Ring of Honor needs a big powerhouse wrestler like Morishima. Morishima was obviously just a huge guy, but that's what's missing from indie wrestling. It's main event powerhouse wrestlers, largely because they all get signed immediately to the WWE or TNA. But I would like to see it. A guy that he's just going to beat you up because he's bigger than you. And Bennett he's nearly big, but he's not quite big. So I'd like to see him, just absolutely destroy opponents for a while and look like a powerhouse. The final piece of business would be the big booking change that we've had this year, moving away from Adam Pearce, bringing in Delirious. When this news was breaking news, you and I were on a podcast here at Pro Wrestling Ponderings, along with Jerome and I believe Kevin. But anyway, but that was talking about hypotheticals. It's been nearly 6 months now, so let's talk actualities. And I guess you could kind of break the year in half and call the first half Adam Pearce's and the second half Delirious's, and you can kind of clean cut assess how he's been so far. And it is still early days. I want to stress that a lot. I don't want anyone to write him off one way or the other. But just based on his first 6 months on the job, how do you think Delirious has done with being the head booker of Ring of Honor?
Yeah, I think he's been doing fine. And I think the thing is that we had mentioned before, and the news had gotten out when the booking change happened, was that, the direction that Ring of Honor was going in creatively was not going to change too much with Delirious at the helm. Adam Pearce said that in his exit interviews, and it's pretty much bore out. The overall year storylines that ran in the top of the card, they pretty much, I think they went towards their proper conclusions, and maybe there were some differences here and there, but I think pretty much what we expected to happen happened, and I think from a wrestler perspective, I think Delirious did the right thing by writing himself out as a character. He got the big beatdown. They put a lot of heat on the All Night Express for doing it, helped get them over. So like Adam Pearce, when Pearce became booker and he took himself out, of action for the most part, he made a couple appearances here and there. Delirious hasn't been back at all in Ring of Honor, and I think that's a very big positive and he should be commended for doing that. And as far as storylines, I think we talked about a bit about this again. I think he redeemed the TV title by concentrating on it a little bit more. On the other hand, I didn't like that he got rid of the Pick 6 ranking system. Not so much that he got rid of it, because it's his prerogative. I mean, if the booking team felt that maybe it wasn't the way to go, that's fine. I just felt that, at least have some respect. I mean, they have respect for the fans, but have a one or two sentence blurb on a newswire, or have Hogwood and Prazak mention it on HDNet, that they're dropping the ranking system in favor of something else. That another contention system or whatever. Just announce it. And the fact that they got rid of it and they really sort of gone to this arbitrary method of picking champion or challengers, I should say, which is more like the way it usually is in professional wrestlers. It's fine. I just really would have liked to have gotten a little bit more closure on that. And other than that, I think really we're going to, sort of the way Pearce jumped in, where he finished a lot of Gabe Spolsky storylines, I think Delirious did the same thing with a lot of the things that Pearce had set up in the beginning of the year. They knocked it down. There's sort of this clean slate now for 2011 for much of what's to come. So I think proper judgment maybe not until next year to see what other new storylines happen. So I think for now, I think he's doing a great job, and I don't think I see any reason to believe that that's going to stop. So I'm pulling for them. I'm thinking they can continue their hot streak, and judging by what they've booked for the January shows, all signs definitely indicate that that's going to happen. That he's going to have a good run as booker.
Yeah, the first 3 shows of 2011 sound fairly amazing to me. And I think the biggest thing is Delirious has really, the HDNet product has improved dramatically. Not just in terms of what everyone hated with the non-finishes and the run-ins, all that ending, but
which
also
I've talked about that forever, and I'm glad to see a lot more clean finishes and a lot less run-ins. So kudos to them for doing so.
But also things I think they use it far more effectively now. I think the timings are always going to bother me, like the way they hold. I think they need to change the way they schedule the tapings, but that's business side of things, not creative, so they can't help that. But the way I think there's a lot more traditional, title build now, thanks to the TV. Like you had Daniels and Roderick Strong had their confrontation that I thought was really strong, with Daniels coming out and saying, "This Saturday I'm going to win the world title," and everyone knew it wasn't this Saturday in the arena, but they played along, and it made for a really strong piece of television. And the last episode before Final Battle, with Davey coming out and then Roddy coming out, and they had their face-to-face confrontation, and Roddy saying what he said about Davey's grandfather, and there isn't enough of that. I don't think. I think I'd like to see more of that. With there's a lot of this match has been made. We'll announce it on the website, talk about it maybe on HDNet, have them face off in tag matches, and then they have their match and it's over. I would like to see more of the champion and the challenger, or just even if it's not a title feud, just a feud. Just have people have face-offs. It's what WWE do well. Like, they don't always do brilliant wrestling, but they do a lot. They're good at getting the shots that need to go into the video packages, if that makes sense, with the guys standing opposite each other, trading insults. And I think we started to see that on HDNet, and I'd like to see more of that. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that was just a tiny little rant that I had. But yeah, Delirious, I think he's done well. He's just sort of steadied the ship, I think, and I think people may have expected him to do radical things, and I didn't. I thought he would just kind of keep things going the way they were, because I think he recognised what was strong and what was weak, and he addressed it, and he's just, he's kept the ship going.
Agreed 100%. And I think, sort of the increase in iPay-per-view buys has sort of borne in that direction out, I think, they've from the big transition from Sapolsky to Pierce and then Delirious, I think, you hear from Cornette and you hear from Kerry Silkin about how they like the old school wrestling and slowing things down and pacing it out. And for the most part, it has worked. And at the same time, the in-ring action is, for the most part, the Ring of Honor style that got over in the first place. I think the one thing that's missing to a certain extent is what Gabe Sapolsky brought as a booker, which is sort of this 21st century big idea, the sort of stuff that, Generation Next, and the Prophecy and the Age of the Fall, that sort of, and especially with the Age of the Fall, where they incorporated the internet as sort of this, and did a lot of viral marketing, and really for like 2.5 months had people guessing what the hell was going on and following along, and it worked. It was a hell of a great start to the storyline, and I think Ring of Honor has gone to that sort of more simplistic but definitely professional wrestling storyline where you have A leading to B leading to C, and it's, even though, if you followed along, if you've been a long time fan, especially if you've watched in the 80s and the 90s, you know what's coming. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. It just means you can enjoy it from the level of being a professional wrestling product, and that's fine. I think obviously it could be, when you have a few like Steen and Generica, it's hard to say, well, Ring of Honor isn't exciting, but I think they need that maybe 1 or 2 major 21st century takes. And I'm not talking about swerves or run-ins or something. I'm talking about, as I just said, an Age of the Fall type angle. And I think that, if you look at the Embassy, for instance, I think a lot of the reason why the ball was dropped on the Embassy was because it was treated as sort of this Southern heel stable that really didn't work. And whereas, I'm putting on my armchair booker right now, but if, say, for instance, Prince Nana bought out Terry Silkin's interest in Ring of Honor and had partial control, it's something that Ring of Honor has never done before. Or if they'd done that with Sweet and Sour Incorporated, and would they've done this sort of era-changing, status quo-changing situation, that would have been really interesting. And I don't think Ring of Honor has done that in a while, a ROH versus CZW type feud. So I would like to see something that shakes things up a little bit, but at the same time, the way, what they're doing with Strong and what they're doing with the Kings of Wrestling, they seem to have a great idea with it, so I'm willing to go along with it, and I'm willing to say, I'm going to put my money towards this product because it is quality product.
Definitely. And just before we get out of here, I just want to very quickly get to some predictions for 2011. And I saw you made.
Sure.
I saw that you made a quick list of things that you think are going to happen in 2011. I also liked that you picked up your predictions for last year. That made me laugh quite a lot. But just some things going forward. Who's going to win championships? Who's going to feud? What's going to happen with the company from a business perspective? Just it can be huge and important. It can be something very random, like Grizzly Redwood is going to feud with Adam Cole. I don't know. I'm on the spot here, but yeah, just anything and everything that you feel will happen in Ring of Honor in 2011.
Sure, yeah. And as far as my predictions go with the year-end column that I do, I do that every year. I take a look back at what I predicted the year before, and actually most years I'll go 50-50, which is pretty good, I'd say. And this year, looking back on what I picked in 2010, I was a little bit less than that. I got about 35% of my predictions right, and then I had a whole slew of predictions for next year. So some of them were thinking that Mike Bennett will probably win the TV title, which we talked about before. But I don't think he's going to win the world title. I think that's a little bit too far out there. I can definitely see Davey Richards winning the title. In my column, I said he would win on his next title shot. So I'm really hoping that his next title shot does not happen during the January HDNet tapings. Otherwise, I will be immediately proven wrong because I don't think Strong's dropping the title that quick. But I think Richards will win the title. I think the world's greatest tag team, or wrestling's greatest tag team, of Haas and Benjamin, they'll be next in line for the tag belts. I'm hoping that Low Ki comes in. I'm really hoping that there's some sort of return for him, so that they have Low Ki and Daniels and Homicide and the Briscoes, a lot of the founding fathers, back in the fold, and contributing. What else? I guess I'll just do an on-the-fly prediction here, and I'll say that Grizzly Redwood will feud with Adam Cole. No,
yes! It's the feud everybody wants.
The feud of the year, yes. I say O'Reilly and Cole will stay as a tag team for the entire year. I don't think there'll be a breakup. And I think they'll...
that's a good prediction. I like predictions.
Yeah, I think they'll make some headway.
Yeah, I don't see why.
Everybody's saying they're going to split up, and I was thinking they were going to split up, but I think they're going to stick together.
Everyone's looking for the first excuse to break them up, and I don't see why. They're going to be main event talents, but they're not going to be main event talents this year, even if they go their separate ways. So they might as well just, stick together, have each other's back, and just kind of build their resume through great tag matches. Them and the Kings could have a hell of a match.
Exactly. They're really good. I think they're going to be a good mid-card tag team for the division.
Yeah.
And what else? And I believe that Matt Hardy will show up in Ring of Honor and will be a white-hot heel. It will only be a short-term return, but I think, I don't think that's going to happen. I predicted it, but I don't have a lot of faith in it happening. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Maybe Jeff Hardy will have an interview from the jail to promote his brother returning.
Good.
And there you go. Any other predictions? You can definitely check out my column, and there's a whole slew of them there.
Yeah, I would say another. I will credit this to you, but I think many people have had this idea that I don't know if they will, but they should. HDNet should bring out some kind of streaming service where you can.
Oh yeah.
Pay a small fee, because I can't watch it legally. I would love to watch Ring of Honor legally. I can't do it over here in the UK, and it's kind of difficult because I'm meant to review the HDNet show each and every week. So I'm not saying I break the law to do it, but I may not follow the law to do it. I would be the first to sign up for that. I think that would be a great coup for them. I think, I don't know if this is going to happen, but I'd like to see a brand new faction. I think Ring of Honor did factions well. I enjoy factions in wrestling. Not a bad one like the Embassy, but one that's actually significant and has one or possibly two main event talents in it. I would like to see that. I don't care who's in it, but I would just like to see a group. I think that would be nice. A nice little thing for us to have in 2011. I think, I would agree with all your predictions. I think Mike Bennett is a lock to win the TV title at some point. I think Haas and Benjamin are getting those titles in June, and I think Ring of Honor are going to promote the hell out of that because This is this isn't WWE burnouts or rejects that nobody wants to see anymore. This is a team that people actually like and miss, and it would be wearing gold in Ring of Honor, and it would be Ring of Honor's excuse to say,
as well they should.
yeah.
Yep.
And it would be Ring of Honor's excuse to say, look, WWE dropped the ball here. This is an entertaining team. And like I thought they were really good back in the day, but when they wrestled the Kings, I thought, there was more to them. Like, there was much more they could have done, and they seemed like they were given the freedom to actually wrestle like a real tag team, and they did an outstanding job, and I look forward to them facing anyone and everyone Ring of Honor can throw at them. I hope they don't over-push them. They're probably going to. They're probably going to be like undefeated all year or something ridiculous like that, but just as long as they get to wrestle good matches, and yeah, I think the Kings have to lose the belts, because at some point they either have to lose them or they have to retire those belts, because the Kings have been phenomenal this year, and it's getting to the point where it's like someone has to beat them. It's not going to be the Briscoes. Haas and Benjamin have to beat them, because otherwise they might as well just say, look, there is no tag team belts anymore, or the Kings are no longer allowed to be a team because they're just too good. And I think a lot of people are calling for Kings of Wrestling singles runs. I don't know how you do it without having them feud, which I don't want to see, because they're just both such dominant personalities, and like they're sort of held back a bit in Ring of Honor. Like if they let them both just absolutely unleash the fury, they dominate the singles division, and like eventually they'd have to meet each other. But I think we will see them both attempt to win the world title. I think Chris Hero should be champion now.
Well, long-time readers of my column know how I feel about Chris Hero, so
oh, really?
I think that I'd agree with you on that.
Okay.
At some point in the future, he's got to be champion.
Yep. Well, there we go then. Those are some predictions. Oh, and of course, Grizzly Redwood, Adam Cole. Everybody look out for that fight without honor at Final Battle 2011.
Yeah.
So those are the predictions. I'm gonna declare that the end of this podcast. And as always, whenever we have a guest, whenever we have anyone on this show, we let you plug your stuff. So Ari, go ahead. Why don't you promote? Why don't you shell away at what you do in the wrestling world? Go for it.
Yeah, so I have my all my year-end features for Column of Honor are out right now, and you can feel free to peruse them. They're free up on 411mania.com, and I have my top 100 Ring of Honor matches of 2010 feature. It's 100 matches from the past, from mid-October to 09 to mid-October of 2010. So to be very specific. And just basically the finest matches from the year of Ring of Honor. You can check that out. It's 3 parts. And then I have my 6-part final column feature with a look back at the entire year of Ring of Honor. It's a Ring of Honor yearbook. And then I've enlisted a whole bunch of writers to contribute their thoughts of the end of the year in Ring of Honor. And then my annual year-end awards, where I award the Ring of Honor Wrestler of the Year, the Tag Team of the Year, MVP of the Year, Best Heel, Best Face, Comeback of the Year, Debut of the Year, and Best Shows, and so on and so forth. So go check all that out. All parts should be available, when this podcast makes air. So again, that's 411mania.com, column of Honor.
Okay. I myself review ROH on HDNet each and every week for Pro Wrestling Ponderings. I fill it with lovely, pretty pictures and give you a review and a recap of everything that went down. I also, in theory, review WWE DVDs, and I'm working on finishing Disc 3 of WWE Presents Wrestling's Highest Flyers, so look for that in the near future. And I also look out for, I'm going to do some year-end awards of my own in written form. I'm going to have that up soon. And I'm putting him on the spot, but I'm actually going to ask Ari to contribute to that in written form. So that may happen. So a further collaboration between the two of us for my year-end awards. And that's everything. But remember, everyone, to keep checking Pro Wrestling Ponderings for all the latest news on indie and mainstream wrestling. We've got reviews of a whole host of DVDs, general interest columns. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/pwponderings. Become our friend, like us, comment on all of our stuff on Facebook, facebook.com/pro wrestling ponderings. And of course, don't forget to check the main site, as I said, and on a regular basis. And keep a lookout for all our podcasts in the future. That'll do it for this edition of the podcast. It was the 2010 Ring of Honor Year in Review. So from me, Ari, and everyone at the site, we'd like to wish you all a very happy new year, and may 2011 be full of good wrestling for one and all.